Well, good morning once again to week 2 of our journey and learning how to apply biblical hermeneutics, which is our methodology of interpreting Scripture. And hopefully through this process that we'll become better equipped to be able to read the Scriptures and to be able to understand what the authors were saying. Actually, what God through the authors are attempting to communicate. So today we will look at the power of lenses, but by way of review, first of all, last week we introduced this idea of lenses and that lenses exist. Lenses exist over this entire process that's being animated here before you right now. There was an event in time, and there was an author writing about that event in time, and now we as the readers, some 2,000 years later, are reading back through what the author has written through his context onto the event itself. And so this entire process has lenses, and that's what we talked about last week, and the fact is that God is okay with that whole process. This morning, we're going to move on and talk about the second aspect of lenses, and that is the power of lenses. And it goes like this. First of all, we start with me. How I think about me. And then in regard, not in contrast, but in relation to that, there is a way that God thinks about me. And the gap in between here is called the transformational gap. And as we become believers and followers of Jesus Christ, that gap, the idea is that there should be movement so that how I think about me starts to correspond more closely with how God thinks about me. Eventually, we want to think about me the way that God thinks about me already. And out of that will flow, in a sense, a security of relationship. And that security of relationship will be expressed through such things as faith, hope, and love. And I would further state that through the very things that we're studying for the next 10 weeks here at Council Tree is the fruits of the Spirit would be subsets of these things, faith, hope, and love. These are the types of expressions that should flow out of a person who is being transformed by the Spirit of the living God. Now, out of this security of relationship, 3 things I've identified should happen as expressions of that security. The first is the ability to self-assess. If I'm not working out of a secure relationship, I don't have the power or the wherewithal within. It's too risky to self-assess and honestly ask the questions how I am doing. I will naturally continue to hide or make excuses. And honest self-assessment is really difficult to do outside of security. The second thing I am able to do is start to be able to receive. And this has everything to do with, in a sense, ego. And that ego wants to do things itself. And being able to receive, it demonstrates humility. And humility, again, must flow out of a secure relationship. The last one that I've identified is forgiveness. And forgiveness, again, if I am not in a secure relationship, I can't forgive because it's giving up way too much. But within a security of relationship with God, and that flowing out of how God thinks about me, I am then able to extend forgiveness and also here receive forgiveness as well. Now, if we bracket these 3 things, this is leading to what I call clarity of lens. Now, we believe that we can't remove our lenses. Those lenses exist. But at least what we can do is have those lenses clear and be self-aware of what those lenses are. And so clarity of lens here, and in a sense, what that does is it feeds back to this whole idea of how I think about me and how God thinks about me. And a clarity of lens will tend to move those two further into alignment. And thus we have a relationship here. It's a relationship of security, of being found in God. And as a result, these activities flow out, which contribute to a clear lens, which in turn feeds back into that relationship, bringing how I think about me more into tune with the reality of how God thinks about me. Now, our takeaway this morning in this snippet is out of Matthew 6, 22 and 23, and it goes like this. This is Jesus speaking. The eye is the lamp or the lens of the body. If your lens is clear, your whole body will be full of light. Clarity of lens is full of light, brings full of light. But in contrast, Jesus says, if your eye is bad, that is clear, foggy, cracked, not functioning properly, your whole body, that cracked lens affects the entire body, will be full of darkness. And then he says this interesting phrase, if the light that is in you is darkness, how great the darkness. Well, what does he mean by that? I think he means your method of interpretation, your method of seeing is somehow defective. That will affect your entire body. And how great is that darkness? Can you think of an occasion where you have experienced a lens adjustment? This is the takeaway. What factors were present ultimately that led you to see differently? Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week.